Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a really fascinating philosophical look at human existence. We're going to examine a historical text that takes the deep, universal tensions of the human condition and looks at them through the lens of one single, ancient exclamation. Our goal today is to objectively unpack the rich concepts of time, human longing, and communal action that are layered all throughout this source material. By the end of this, we'll see exactly how this text views the past, the present, and the future. Okay, let's dive into this. What does Alleluia actually mean? I mean, it's one of those words that echoes everywhere. You hear it in ancient Gregorian chants, modern pop anthems, Leonard Cohen songs, but we rarely stop to actually define it. Well, the text we're analyzing today doesn't just treat this as a simple dictionary definition. Instead, it uses this single word as a gateway to explain the entire human experience of waiting, hoping, and living. The text basically argues that to understand the word, you first have to understand our relationship with time and desire. This source text frames this whole idea perfectly with this quote. It is good for us to persevere in longing until we receive what was promised, and yearning is over. Then praise alone will remain. That beautifully captures the core theme here, the universal human experience of delayed possession. The author is really highlighting that profound tension between our current reality, where we're constantly yearning for something we just don't have yet, and a promised future where all of that longing finally stops. It's a powerful acknowledgement that, right now, we are essentially living in a constant state of waiting. So, that brings us to our first major theme from the text, two periods of time. The text draws a really stark line between two different eras of human existence. On one side, we've got the present life. According to the source, our current earthly existence is just inherently beset with trials, troubles, and this overarching sense of yearning. It is, by definition, a time of struggle. But contrast that with the life to come. The text envisions this future promised state as one defined by everlasting serenity, pure joy, and eternal rejoicing. So you have these two completely opposite realities, one full of friction and one of total peace. Because of these two completely different realities, the text points out a kind of structural rhythm to how we communicate. In our present life, we make petitions, meaning we're asking for what we lack. These petitions are driven by that deep, nagging yearning for things we don't yet possess. On the flip side, we have praise, which the text says is expressed with sheer joy simply because we trust the promise of what's to come. So we're living in this dual rhythm, right? We're simultaneously asking for help in our current troubles while also rejoicing because we trust in a better future. Moving right along, let's look at how the text maps this onto the calendar before and after Easter. The source points out something pretty cool here. The seasons surrounding Easter actually serve as a literal, physical mirror for that human existence we were just talking about. The time before Easter is marked by fasting and intense prayer, which the text specifically notes signifies our present earthly troubles and trials. But then you have the time after Easter, when the fast is broken, and that period is entirely devoted to praise. This shift signifies the future happiness that will eventually be ours. So the liturgical calendar itself is designed to make us physically practice this transition from present suffering into future joy. And this brilliantly illustrates the author's main point. The text says, what we commemorate before Easter is what we experience in this life. What we celebrate after Easter points to something we do not yet possess. The author's using the calendar as this ongoing annual metaphor for the universal human condition of waiting. When you're in the season of fasting, you're deeply acknowledging your current reality. But when you enter the season of celebration, you're pointing toward a hope that is promised, even if it's not fully in your grasp yet. Next up, we're looking at Christ as the model. The text shows how Christ serves as the ultimate blueprint for this whole experience. First, there's the earthly life, represented by the Lord's Passion. The text argues that this directly depicts our present life of trial, showing how we all have to face affliction, suffering, and ultimately death. But then we move to the future life, represented by the resurrection. This, the text explains, is the definitive model showing the glorification and joy that will eventually be granted to us. It really is a visual blueprint for the entire philosophical argument we've been tracking. So, the crucial point is the meaning of Alleluia. All right, having set up this massive framework of our present struggles and our future hopes, the text brings us right back to our opening question. The direct translation it gives is actually incredibly straightforward. Alleluia simply means praise the Lord. But here's the catch. The source doesn't view this as some solitary command. It fundamentally defines it as a mutual, communal urge that you share with your neighbors. You aren't just shouting this into the void. It's a direct, intentional interaction with the people around you. The text describes this really beautiful cyclical dynamic that happens when the word is spoken out loud. First, there's telling your neighbor, where you literally turn to someone else and urge them to praise. But at the exact same time, there is doing the action. By telling someone else to praise, you are actively participating in the praise yourself. The author notes that we're all urging one another, and by doing so, we're all doing exactly what we urge the other person to do. It's like the ultimate historical version of a positive feedback loop.
Which leads us right into our final theme, praising with your actions.
Now, according to the source, true praise actually comes with a pretty strict set of requirements. It has to come from your whole being. The text warns that it absolutely cannot be done with your lips and voices alone. It has to be done with your minds, with your lives, and with literally all of your actions. This is a massive escalation of the concept, right? The text is essentially telling us that living a good life, day in and day out, is actually the ultimate, truest form of praise. To break this down a bit more, the text contrasts our gathered, physical spaces with our normal, everyday routines. When we are assembled in church, there's vocal praise happening in a specific physical space. But what happens when we leave? Well, the text asserts that when we are going on our various ways, the praise shouldn't stop. It's supposed to become continuous. How? Simply by never swerving from justice and from what is good. The author argues that you only ever cease to praise when you stop living a good, just life.
Which brings us to this incredibly powerful concluding quote from the source. Listen to this. If you never turn aside from the good life, your tongue may be silent, but your actions will cry aloud, and God will perceive your intentions. Just reflect on the weight of that for a second. It's this profound idea that our silent actions, our daily choices, our basic commitment to goodness, they speak just as loudly, if not louder, than our literal voices ever could. Our lived behavior becomes a constant, resounding echo of that one word, Alleluia.
So that leaves us with a fascinating final thought to chew on today. Based on this entire historical breakdown of yearning, the passage of time, and silent praise, are your daily actions shouting louder than your words? It's a pretty remarkable way to view how we move through the world, isn't it? The idea that every choice we make to be just and good is actually an active participation in the future joy we're all waiting for. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring the incredible ideas hiding just beneath the surface of the words we use every single day.